Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with not Rogan Smith. Erica Wells Cox is with us this afternoon. As I think Rogan expressed to us, she had some things to, get together. She had some things to pull together. So she's not with us this afternoon. We will have Candelaria Thompson, nee Sumner, with us later on. And of course, we have the DJs in the booth next door. And of course, when I get a break, I'll have to go over there and say, I just walk in. I don't say anything. I'm pleasant. I just go, and they understand. Even though this is going on the 300 and something Monday of the show. But having said all that, how are you doing, Erica?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Yeah, nice to be here.
It's always a pleasure. We are having with us Mr. Fred Mitchell, Minister Fred Mitchell, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Immigration. We're going to talk about the, this privilege thing. It's a thing that I've always, I've been talking about for years. So this is nothing. Is it novel or novice?
Novel.
Novel to me. Could one use novice? No, that applies to an individual. Yeah. That's correct. Well, I always want to say the right, lexicon. Want to apply the right lexicon to the situation at hand, as they say. But that'll be an interesting conversation because there are some very, very valid points in terms of people on both sides, I assume. I think basically the most people who are on one side are like 40 people, and then there's everyone else. But no, we'll find out what Mr. Mitchell's bent on it is, and I think it'll be an interesting conversation. Now into more or to less, more minutia, I suppose. That's not minutia, but this might be. So the Olympics is over.
Yep.
I had an opportunity to watch most of these sporting events. Specifically, one of the things I enjoyed the most was the dressage.
Oh,
have you watched that?
I have.
Yeah. Someone needs to tell me. Ken is looking. He doesn't see me looking at him, but he's looking at me quizzically. Like, what the hell is dressage? Is that correct? You're looking at me that way. It is the dancing of horses.
It's like ballet for horses.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Very difficult.
I don't know how they get them horses to do that. Okay. But it is amazing because they literally have the horses are dancing different steps to the music.
And almost defying gravity because they go side to side and move forward at the same time.
Kendrick, you can employ the internets and you can look up dressage video so you can see what's happening. But the main thing there's certain sports, there's certain things in life that you and I can't do that.
Correct.
Because we don't have the cash flow. Okay? Because number one, you need a horse. That's number one. Okay? It's all about the horse.
You're already out to run it.
Well, you need a good horse.
I assume you would need a horse that's bred
Yes.
for dressage. You couldn't just bring one of your horse and buggy from Russell Square there and say, let's dance.
Well, if you have the right rider, perhaps.
No, the only dressage they're doing is falling down from the heat. Because that's the scary thing with those horses go through downtown. But it's amazing. It's even amazing just the equestrian. Mm-hmm. Because I've done were you aware that I did equestrian?
I did not know that, Ed.
Well, this is he. See,
you are full of surprises.
I did equestrian in college. I had gone to a place called Camp Arawak.
Okay.
In Nassau. I was at St. Augustine's, and they had horses, and I got thrown from a horse. I was about 11 years old. So I was deathly afraid of horses. Afraid. These are big animals.
Yes.
This is, and so I was in St. John's in Minnesota, and they had an equestrian course. And I looked at that and I said, I should take that because I want to get off of my fear of horses. And I see these little women riding these horses. I'm going, why am I afraid of these horses when these petite women feel like this is a big move? Well, the first move that one must pass is the move of the groin. Okay? Because let me tell you, man, that ain't made for us. Okay, I would the first couple of days from leaving from posting. Posting is a method in which you
That's the
gallop.
up and down,
Yes,
right?
up and down.
You're up and down.
If you don't post right, and instead of you going with the horse smashes. It's a long walk back to the dorm. So I had to learn that, and I did a couple of jumps. You know, I got about maybe a foot or two off the ground. My first jump was like the world's best thing, man. You know, but it was I had a thing.
Did you get thrown again?
No, I did not. The saddle slipped once, but I managed to pull right myself. Ken, you're amazed, aren't you? Did you see the dressage?
It's like, no. No, he's not amazed.
Yes, you see that? Look at that. You see that, Candy?
It's
Yeah.
it's
Too bad
quite
the listening
incredible.
audience can't see, but they all have Androids. So just Google dressage, and that's dress with age at the end.
I was just going to say
Yeah. So I watched the archery. Now I'm aware
missed
that we have see now. So I'm going off on a little tangent, but so after all of this stuff, I kind of felt moved to write about this. And the thing that always bothers me, it's been bothering me for 20 years, is that we have all of these issues with crime and social decay and all that. And if there's one proven method to reduce that, it's kids' involvement in sports and arts.
Yep.
The culture, but sports is, kids like sports, music, stuff like that. And we can do it. Archery, I understand there's an archery club. Were you aware of that?
No, I did not know
Erica,
that.
my dear, what are you aware of? You were not aware of that?
No, I did not know that.
What's that? Running, well, yeah, but everyone running.
It's a midlife crisis thing, I understand.
Well, see, you know what the problem is, right? You got your face in those books. Okay?
Yeah, sure. I'm too
Okay.
busy reading.
There's an archery club apparently in back of the Holy Family Church
Okay.
on Robinson Road, where they also do judo. Were you aware of that?
Yes, I know judo.
Okay.
I know they have a
So,
good following.
do you know that we have a rowing club?
Yes.
Okay. And we, of course, this year had a rower.
Yeah, in the
Okay.
finals.
And I saw the canoe. Did you see the canoe? We could definitely get some brothers from Lily Valley kind of doing that.
Was that the one where they were like
Like
in the
kneeling?
pool with the?
The kneeling. No, you're thinking of kayaking.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Thanks for
Okay,
correcting
yeah.
me.
See? Okay.
So,
Now, mind you, they have kayaking on the flat water as well. But canoeing is where they're literally in this kind of, Olympic type canoe, not like a Hiawatha type canoe. And they're kneeling and they're just, stroking,
just
man.
racing. So
Just racing.
This is on the lake.
It's brute strength.
Wow.
Yeah, on the lake. And we have lakes.
Yes.
So we can do that. We can do taekwondo. Fellas around here like to fight. Let them fight, in a disciplined environment. Wrestling, or as we say, wrestling.
Fencing.
Fencing. There's a whole range of things, and all we have to do is invest in it. And they will create jobs. They will create jobs because you have to have facilities. You have to build facilities. You have to maintain facilities. And by the way, these facilities can be used by traveling schools who come to use them during the winter. You can have tournaments. It's an industry. Why am I wasting my time? It's an industry.
Do we still have a YMCA here?
We have the building. I don't know if it's I don't know if they're still
functioning?
Ying.
Okay.
So they used to play table tennis there a lot. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Were you aware of that, Erica?
That I did know.
Okay. Kendrick, were you aware of that? Okay. Don't lie now. You're known for lying. No, but they used to play a lot of ping pong there. And and that's another sport. You have all these gyms, all these buildings. You can just get ping pong tables. You can get it from the sports center. My good friend Tim Revington. You can buy a ping pong table for a couple $100, man.
What is handball Olympics? What is that, like the handball we used to play?
No, that's like four square, like the kind of handball. This is kind of like it's like soccer, and I find it kind of weird, to be honest with you. Big grown men running around throwing a little ball into the net, but it's a big thing seemingly in Europe.
Well, it's an Olympic sport.
It is. There are a lot of Olympic sports, by the way, that are questionable, so don't worry about that. But you have badminton. I love that.
Yes.
Okay. So all of these sports don't require huge investments. They require some good coaching. We have a very dynamic gymnastics program.
Yes.
Were you aware of that?
Yes.
And in fact, we have a very, very big gymnastics tournament at the end of every year for the last 5 years. So this can be done. And I think it is a great avenue for kids not only to get off the streets, learn, become disciplined, get involved in a disciplined environment, and have opportunities to get scholarships to go to school. And you look at like sports that quote unquote traditionally the Afro peoples did not do, like gymnastics. Well, let me tell you, the Afro peoples, they have them muscle legs. They could jump high. You see what's happening now with Biles.
Has been put to rest.
Put to rest. Yeah, because if you look at the gymnastics of before compared to now, it's like a whole different world. Like I could do the, you just cartwheels. I think was what they did. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity that we should really, and we need to get the politics out of it. Just fund these things, build facilities, or open up to private interests who might want to do them. But we want to take everything and politicize it, and
there have been some success stories, though. The band, the marching
band.
The bands,
yeah. Well, even what? To some extent, even that has been politicized, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But they have been successful. Yeah. So, what did you think of Lochte?
I think he should be stripped of his medal.
Oh,
I thought it
so
was
you're
a disgrace.
Extreme.
Yes.
Well, he's already re-dyed his hair.
Yeah, I see.
As if now that's not me. So, the crime is gone.
No, I think it was disgraceful what he did. And I think the IOCs, these are just kids having fun. He's not a kid. He's a 32-year-old man.
Yeah. I've known some kids in the U.S. who've gotten shot with Skittles. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's a double standard. Yeah. And, I saw one announcer with Al Roker, and the announcer was just making excuses he embellished or something like that. It was like, it's a lie.
Exaggerated. No, it's a lie.
It's a lie. Yeah, it's just a lie, man. So and it's one of those, what people haven't really looked into because it's so American-centric is the kind of pall, I'm just using that word,
good word,
that he cast over Brazilians. Yeah, they have issues, but you see, it's like the typical thing. Like, well, yes, a black person attacked me, even though it wasn't.
Right.
That goes back a long ways, right? To the days, just yeah. So he just thought he could get away with that because that was some sort of stereotype expectation.
They need to punish him appropriately.
Speedo dropped him.
Speedo.
Yeah.
And 3 other sponsors.
Well, they was going to drop him anyway because he ain't got no more speed.
I hadn't heard about the other.
Yeah,
but they dropped him. See, and that's what's so silly, right? You lose all of that, for because of something. If you even just admitted I did that, it was drunk, they wouldn't have dropped him.
I don't even know why it was necessary for him to say anything.
No, he didn't. I think what happened was he told his mother I don't know. He told his mother a story.
Oh.
And the mother told the media.
Well, he told the media too, though.
Well,
I watched
after
him.
The fact, after it already.
But why did he
out.
bother to tell his mother? He's 32. He can't tell his mother he was drunk.
I don't know if it was he could tell him. I don't know what the circumstances were behind why he had to lie to his mother.
He thought he was getting a spanking.
No, not because he was drunk. I don't think that was. I don't know what I say. I don't know. I don't. But it wasn't him that told the media the story.
No, I'm saying
first.
Why did he tell his mother a lie?
I don't know.
Mom, I was just,
somebody must have come to him.
It was only candy.
Maybe the police, because they said that they had him on video fighting and breaking down a door, right? So
I think it's alcohol related, and I think, to be quite honest with you, he immediately thought how this is going to impact his cash flow.
Right.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
Immediately. That's what they think. It's going to immediately, because you have to be squeaky clean,
right,
to represent the brand.
I don't think
a lot of those brands have clauses,
say anything.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of those brands have clauses in terms of behavior and conduct, etc. So he immediately,
But I don't think he expected his mom to say anything.
Well, if you got robbed in a foreign country,
why is your mom
mom's going to at least tell the neighbor.
Yeah.
Do you know that my son almost got killed?
I'm saying. I'm not making excuses for him.
His mother contacted the press and said, "Oh, my son got robbed." That's what happened.
No, I don't know how it happened, but it was her that kind of.
Okay, so the mom that he was afraid of screwed him up at the end of the day.
Exactly. So.
All right. Well, listen, we're going to take a little break. We're going to come back. We have candy, and then there's a couple of other things we'll talk about just real briefly. And then, of course, later on we have I was going to say, the Minister Fred Mitchell on, and we're going to talk about privilege, parliamentary privilege, and lots of other stuff. We'll be right back. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. That's my, after, as you know, having watched the Olympics, I was fortunately was able to understand the many languages that they. Did you pick up any? That's Russian, by the way. Pardon? Did you pick up any? He didn't turn on your mic. He doesn't have your mic on, so you can't talk. No, he'll be back. Well, I don't know if Erica's is on either, but he'll be back in a second. So I'll just ramble until. Is Erica's yours on? Say something.
Something.
Yeah, Erica's is on.
Okay.
So yeah. So so I was able to, the Russian,
How do you say that again? Good evening.
Good evening.
Oh, that's.
So you add an ink
I got
onto
you.
something,
Okay.
and then you're automatically Russian. Yeah, is Candy's mic on, Mr.
There we go.
Yes. Good evening. With other languages, you add different vowels on. Okay, like Italiano.
Yeah.
Spaghetti. Or you just string on the last word, spaghetti. It's all how you do it. It's all how you do it, and they understand
Did
you.
you pick up any new ones?
I picked up some Serb.
From the Serb.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But I can't. Y'all wouldn't understand it, so I'm not going to do that. By the way,
All
did
right.
you notice that Shanae Miller is Shawnee Miller is engaged to an Estonian.
Right, yes.
I heard that.
His name
that
is
true?
Michael
He's also
Weibo.
an athlete, eh?
He's a decathlete.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah, that's how they roll.
Yeah, man.
she's 22,
Lovely.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
She's young.
he's 20 something as well.
Okay.
Yeah, but they both went to the University of Georgia. Go Dogs!
Okay.
I went to the University of Georgia, so I can say that. You can't say that. It's not a language that I'm involved with. The whole Georgia go Dogs, sick 'em. Woof, 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 woof. It's a thing.
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
that's
all right.
it, Georgia.
Yeah, but you see, you wouldn't
Leave that to
understand it.
the
Imagine
dogs,
82,000 people saying that.
What's that?
Imagine 82,000 people in a stadium saying that. Okay? So there you have it. Anyway, it's time for...
It's like candy. I can feel it when you walk, even when you talk. It takes over me.
So we have Candelaria Thompson with us. In a couple of minutes after the news break, we'll have the Honorable Minister Fred Mitchell, and we're going to have I think it's going to be a great conversation. Candy, how are you doing?
I'm great.
Did you watch the Olympics?
I'm in withdrawals
You
right
are?
now. Yeah,
Yeah,
man. I
that's
always
the
feel
thing
so
with TV.
sad when
Well, I don't
the
feel sad.
Olympics
I
are
just
over.
feel like I have nothing to do.
Well, I could get back to politics now because I put that to the
Honestly,
side
it's-
completely.
Yeah, but you know what? I've
That doesn't
decided
interest
I don't
me.
think I'm going to watch it for a little while.
I know
I'm
you're
stressing out.
Yeah, I don't-
nervous.
that
You're
doesn't
nervous.
interest
I
me
don't have
anymore.
a problem.
You're not nervous?
No,
You think she can win?
it's not what I think. I just enjoy watching.
Yeah, but I can't
things
handle
fall into
handle
place.
repercussions, man. see?
That doesn't interest me. So
Yeah.
I mean,
It better
watch
interest
it.
you, otherwise you might be in a concentration camp. Anyway, so
That's not funny.
no, it's not. But I'm saying, you see, I was saying to someone, it is because they were talking about the one-sided media. And I'm saying, maybe we need in history more one-sided media in the case of possible tyranny, etc. Because it's just a scary thing.
I mean, the one-sided media thing, though, in the States, you have your Fox, you have your MSNBC,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have your CNN in the
Yeah,
middle.
yeah.
It's
all whose side you're on. Yeah,
You
yeah.
have to make sure you just do the
Yeah,
rounds.
if you're me, you don't want to be watching Fox.
You don't want to go
No.
on
No,
Fox.
because that'll stress you out.
No.
No, I want to go on Fox.
Scott,
No, I mean, you
Fox,
don't-
Fox makes you a little scary.
'Cause I wanna say some things to them.
Okay, like what's his name? The
Bill
other day?
O'Reilly.
Hannity.
Oh.
He's a piece
Hannity
of
is
work.
an advisor,
Yeah.
an informal advisor to Trump.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And Ann Coulter.
Oh,
God,
yeah,
wait.
she's
I don't know.
toxic.
I
Anyway,
don't
listen,
get joy
we
in-
got to do Candy.
Yes.
So listen, Candy, tell us
Yes.
what's going on.
Well, Ed,
Yes.
you would be happy to know that you actually sparked my topic for today.
Yeah. I catalyzed something.
Yes, you certainly
Yeah.
did.
Very good.
From the conversation that we were having last week,
Mm-hmm.
from the the message, the Tide Goat message, and you'd said something. You said, "Oh, just talk."
Mm-hmm.
Just why can't you just talk to your wife or talk to your husband?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that's not very easy. And so today's topic is, how do you talk to your partner? Yes.
Well, that's interesting. And what do you advise?
Because a lot of times people don't know how to, and I think it's some of it stems from our upbringing as well. Mm-hmm. We've not been taught to communicate certain things, our feelings, our finances, or sex.
I think people don't talk. Period. About like whether it's the employer or the employer-employee relationship.
Right.
Everywhere they don't want to offend.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't think. But some people can effectively communicate, certain things.
Right.
But when it comes to matters of the heart, like with your spouse, this person who
you're forced to live
they
with for
can
the rest of your
damage you,
life.
you can damage them. I mean, it's like, you know what I mean? What was that? I didn't
said
hear
who
you.
you're forced to live with for the rest of your life. There's
Actually,
ramifications.
Hold on, huh?
There's
Who
ramifications.
you asked to live with for the rest of your life.
Whatever it is, there
We
are
just
ramifications.
accepted your proposal.
Well, even the person who has been asked,
Right.
they're in that
Exactly.
mode. Yeah.
And so, that, and for the person, the guy that had written the message, obviously it's not something that's easy for him to just go and talk to. Mm-hmm. So, but avoiding is probably the worst thing that you can do. Avoiding something that, is near and dear to you, or that something that you're feeling. And so avoidance is not an option. So you have to bring it, like you said, you have to bring it to them. But how do we do it?
Well, I mean, how do you do it?
tell you.
How do you do it? That's what I'm saying. How do you do it?
If you just wait
How does one do that?
Well, okay, so communicating is difficult on a daily basis in general, but effective communication is what is key. And you can't just spring and pop a heavy conversation on your spouse just... sitting down watching the Olympics.
Did you realize I don't like you very much?
You could be sitting down watching the Olympics.
I want a divorce.
Yeah.
And you just spring something. Oh, that outcome is not going to be very good.
Right.
You're not going to get a very good end result.
Right.
But you have to approach and say, listen, I'm feeling some, this way, or there's something that I would like to talk to you about.
Right.
Can we schedule a time?
A time.
That's scary.
We can't.
No, it's not scary.
I need immediacy.
That is not
because
scary.
I don't need to
let's
panic.
talk now.
No,
Let's
see,
turn off the
exactly.
TV.
No, let me tell you why scheduling a time is important as opposed to let's do it now. It gives you time not only to mentally prepare, so you don't pop off, because, people could pop off when things are just now, because you become defensive. You've not prepared yourself mentally and emotionally.
But are you prepared when you don't know what they're going to say?
No, but I think it's important to preempt them. Yes,
Okay.
you say what it is that you want to talk about.
Okay,
You're not going to just leave them out in the
Okay,
dark.
yeah.
You tell them. Why?
Can we schedule next week? And if you could think about that all
Write
week.
it out.
No.
I
But
want
you're
to talk.
gonna give them a topic.
Right.
All
No,
okay.
you tell them, you give them
Generally.
generally what it is that's on your mind.
Yeah.
And schedule. You cannot spring something like that on,
People need to be prepared.
and it gives that person time to manage their emotions
And
too.
reflect,
And let's see where this goes. And you come together at the scheduled time when it's right. You don't have the screaming children. It's not 11 p.m. in the night, or you're rushing off to work. Let me tell you something. Those kinds that when you do that to your spouse, that just adds fuel, and it's not going to be a good conversation. And you've not
toxic.
set up a very safe environment for your spouse to tell you what it is that they want to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Because now all you're thinking about is, listen, you need to hurry up. I need to go to bed because I got to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning. What you want to say? What you got to
Is that
say?
one things?
What you got to say?
But listen, I mean,
And don't- hold on,
but
and don't
obviously
be
these aren't
manipulative.
perfect, but these aren't perfect. You got to also advise people these aren't perfect scenarios.
These aren't perfect scenarios,
Because
but these are
people-
guidelines.
Yeah,
There's always
yeah, yeah,
guidelines, right? No, I mean, but that popping up, that popping up and just plumping down next to you and putting something heavy on your spouse, you are asking for defense.
Yeah.
They will immediately go on the
people,
defense.
people are defensive. People don't like to be
Exactly.
thought ill of.
So at least give them that space, give them that time to say, okay, prepare myself. Okay, we can have we can have a conversation.
Right.
And when you do have the conversation, active listening, people don't know that if it's one thing, if it's one form of respect that you can give anybody, and this is out any relationship that you have, whether it's employer, employee, husband, wife, child, is active listening. You are actively listening. You're not listening to respond. You are listening to what that person is saying and not saying. You're watching the nonverbal communication. It's everything that goes into.
You have to also,
and that requires time too.
Right, but that also, to be fair, because someone is going to actively listen doesn't mean that they're sitting there just to absorb what you're saying and not have a response because they may have a very valid response.
Yeah, no, I didn't say you can't respond.
But that is in the mode you should be in.
No, right. If you both are bringing something, you want to actively listen to each other. Repeat what it is that you want to listen to. Understand each other, not to say, okay, well, I got a rebuttal for you or I have a response. But let me tell you, I understand what you're saying. And then once I understand what you're saying, well, here's my response to what I understand that you're saying to me.
And I'm being devil's advocate here.
Sure.
That's mature. That's mature and difficult.
Maturity is a big
difficult thing. And maybe what you learn out of that maturity is that, well, that's not going to work out. Even though, because just because you're talking about something doesn't mean it's going to be resolved.
Right.
You may just discover, you know what, this is something that we're never going to resolve this way. We're going to have to figure out another way to resolve it.
Right.
Because it's not going to be resolved like, I've explained this to you and now you're going to start to brush your teeth.
Now,
but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's just, what's the matter?
It doesn't necessarily always mean that there has to be a fix at the end of the conversation.
It's just an understanding.
It's an understanding. It's an ongoing conversation. Because I know some people, yes, well, let's resolve this right now. Let's
fix.
Yes, let's fix it. But some things require a little bit more time, depending on what the sensitivity of the topic.
What should be the end result of a conversation like that?
What's that?
When you're if it's not to resolve, is it just to get a better understanding of the situation and you come back to it later? Or
well, yeah, because I feel if this is something that you've never discussed with your spouse, how do you think that you're going to come to a resolution in one sitting in one conversation? You can't do it.
It's a level of awareness.
Yes, I want to bring to your attention, this is the issue that I am having. And I think, especially if it's the first conversation, let that sink in with your partner. Why okay. Now, if you decide that, okay, we need to reach an agreement on something that we will come and revisit this in X amount of time, then that is the resolution for that particular conversation.
Interestingly enough.
And then we do a follow-up.
Interestingly enough, it would be interesting to chronicle how much of these things are, in a sense, minutia, right? That end up being big things. So, like, it could just be something that annoys the other party, but the other party one party isn't aware of it. So it creates it's just growing, I just don't like the way you're, So, but once you make the person aware of it, the fact that you've gotten it out and that the other person is now aware of it, maybe they can make it shift as opposed to not ever talking about it. But we got to take a break and we're going to come back and then we're going to have to do 5 minutes because we have Mr. Mitchell on, but we'll be back in a couple minutes after the news.
I can feel it.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Erica Wells-Cox and Candelaria Thompson. We're just going to wind up here. Our guest this afternoon is Minister Fred Mitchell. We're going to talk about parliamentary privilege and some other things, I think, just about, the state of our democracy, et cetera, in general. So, Candy, just to wrap up.
Yes. So in sorry. In, bringing difficult conversations to your partner, it's not a good thing to avoid. So when you schedule a time, let them know what it is that give them an idea of what it is that you want to talk about. Don't keep them in the dark. Scheduling a time is important because you don't want to spring anything on your partner that will cause them to be defensive, and then the conversation heads south, and then it doesn't work for the both of you. And when you do have the conversation, show respect for each other. Be aware on both parts, your nonverbal communication. That's very important. the neck, the huffing, the puffing, and all that stuff. And prepare yourself, whether it's, you're preparing to manage your emotions. If you know you could pop off quick, you're pop off king or queen, know that, I need to just calm down and keep on topic and,
keep it in check.
Keep it in check.
Yeah. All right.
And then at the end, reach some sort of agreement. It doesn't have to be a resolution. And,
next steps
and do follow-ups. And if all else fails, you might have to seek some outside help.
Right.
But, yeah.
All right. Self-help is always a good start. Well, Candy, thank you very much. We're going to wind this segment up.
Yes.
And tell us about Tide Goat. And
yes, you can. Please visit us on Facebook, Tide Goat. Loose goat don't know how Tide Goat feel. Sparking the conversations. We're just trying to figure this out with you.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
All right.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Erica Wells Cox. And our special guest this afternoon is the Honorable Minister Fred Mitchell, Minister of Immigration and Foreign Affairs. I'm 57 now, so I'm losing my mind ever so slowly. I had a great intro into this. I know what it was. See, but this is. I also am at the point where it just snaps back. Okay, so don't worry about it, Fred. Now, I was saying to Erica when I was at The Guardian in 1982, I happened to be, covering some story, and it might have been actually at immigration. And there was a form there, whatever the form, application for something, and you had to fill it out in, I think it was either triplicate or quadruplicate. And they had the carbon paper thing. You have to have a thing for that. And one day I just questioned, why are we doing this? Why are we doing filling this out? And I researched and I kind of found out that one of the copies was supposed to go to the colonial office. Okay, that's what it was designed for. But this was in 1982. So obviously someone didn't check that. They just, okay, we're going to continue to do this. And this may seem like a mundane allusion, but the reason I bring it up is because I'm of the opinion that there are lots of things that we do that we don't question, that we just continue to do them. Another example, Minister, of is because I know I dealt with you on it for many months and maybe a couple of years or so, was the issue of the immigration form coming into the Bahamas. How it was something we just did, but we didn't question it. And when people started to question it, then we were able to look at how we got away with it, did away with it. Now, I bring that up to make the analogy with respect to parliamentary privilege. And some would argue that parliamentary privilege was something, and I think you referred to the ancientness of it, that this was something that was put in place to protect the parliament from the king. And that the parliament in those days, the House of Commons, was the representative body of the common man, the people. And this was done to protect those in parliament from the king, not the parliament from the common man. Is that a reasonable construct? Is that a reasonable position?
Its historic origins are, of course, the fight between the British Crown, Charles I, I believe, and the Commons over the question of the supremacy of Parliament. So that's the origins of it. But the power for it resides in the Constitution right now. And it really is a protection for members of Parliament. But as my own view is, it is really a privilege for the constituents, so their case can be made without having to worry about criminal or civil sanctions.
Okay. So if you look at that and you say, okay, well, the construct was put in place to protect the common man, should not the common man also, because I think it's probably a balance, somewhere in between there, because certainly the common man, we don't have a king, so to speak, to be concerned about, but the common man should also enjoy a certain protection from those that, for the sake of argument, rule. It has been something that, and it's weird how these things happen, because I think something happened that involved me many, many years ago. It didn't get to any level of concern, but it kind of, irked me that it could have gotten to that, right? Where an issue happened, I don't need to get into details, an issue happened, and there was a potential that my name could have been uttered in the House. And what then happens is, let's just say in some way, shape, or form it was tainted. I felt I would have no recourse to correct it. So isn't there a line there that we must be concerned about, that someone unscrupulously could just say something about someone? In fact, Juan McCartney was on our show last week, and he brought attention to a member accusing someone of murder in the halls of Parliament. Now, certainly that's libelous in the outside world. Why would that person not have recourse to defend his reputation?
Well, recourse is a different issue from the issue of whether people who speak in Parliament should be free to say what they want to say.
Right.
I mean, if you want to, for example, I think the Brits at one time talked about people having a right of reply. So you could come and address the bar. I don't think they've even gone that far in the UK. But, there are lots of instances where that happens. Certainly, you have the down market magazines and newspapers in this country who straddle the line and defame people, but you have no effective recourse at all. And it's not even as responsible as the House is, because at least, the Speaker is there as a guardian to stop the kind of abuse that you talked about. But, these newspapers, they just say whatever they want to say. Well, and, everybody knows who they're talking about, right. But they are asset free. So you have no recourse whatsoever. Untested affidavits are filed in the Supreme Court all the time, right. As a mechanism for saying defamatory things about people, and you have no recourse either.
But in those instances, and again, this is I know I'm going to enjoy this conversation because it's really a weaving of process, right? Is in those cases, those people, those down market publications, you say, social media, anonymity, all of those people somehow make a deliberate determination to skirt recourse, and their credibility is somewhat tempered because they shroud themselves in anonymity or some sort of maze of protection.
Well, some people don't worry about anonymity.
But you can also sue.
But you can sue the ones who aren't anonymous. You can sue them, right?
Yeah, but again, sue and get what?
Well,
people, the newspaper, the particular newspaper, I won't call its name, has made itself defamation proof because it has no assets. So what are you going to go up against?
But isn't there one of if you do go to court, and again, I'm not versed in this, aren't you able to at least clear your name? If the court can prove this was not the case, at least you have that course.
Well, you don't even get that satisfaction because once it's out there, how do you clear your name? And so what I'm saying is there are these balancing points all around. The fact is Parliament is the highest forum. And the question is, if members of Parliament, in their own deliberate judgment, and the fact is they're elected, and so it's presumed that they can make these judgments on behalf of people, ought to be free to say what they want to say. There are rules, of course, in the House itself, and the Speaker is the guardian of that kind of abuse. And basically, I think he does a pretty good job of it.
So we would hold that because someone is elected, that we
and appointed, because senators have the same. Protections.
Because one is appointed or elected, that then essentially. And before I go into that, let me ask you, because the big point is the issue of the Constitution, of course. And again, this is gets all into this tangled web. The fact when this construct was made in Britain many years ago, they don't have a constitution. We have a constitution. Pardon?
It's in ours.
It's right. So we have a constitution. So it goes. I'll tell you what is interesting about that. We just had a referendum.
Yeah.
And some would argue, I heard this argument just as much as last night. Some would argue that the forefathers of the Constitution constructed the Constitution in a manner that reflected their view that men were superior to women. This is just the argument,
That's
right? And that they deliberately constructed it that way so as to solidify that position and to make it impossible not to almost impossible to overturn it. Can we be as skeptical to say that the way that the Constitution was constructed as it relates to that rule, that it was done so that parliamentarians could essentially be above the law that the average man would be?
No, not at all.
That's not a fair position?
This stuff about this Save the Bays issue is just a momentary kerfuffle.
Yeah.
And it's really politically driven.
Right.
There is no issue with parliamentary privilege whatsoever, and parliamentary privilege has not been abused. People are making a fantastical leap with regard to a lot of this, which, as I say, is politically driven.
Right.
The fact is, this has nothing to do with raiding somebody's emails and all this other guff that people are saying in public. This is only to do with whether or not parliamentarians have freedom of speech in the parliament, and whether a judge can order a member of parliament not to say something in parliament. That's ludicrous. But you can't even order you not to say something on the radio.
But let me ask you a question. Well, Urca probably could, but let me ask you this question.
Try.
Yeah, they could try.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this question. The set aside the specific of the Save the Bays issue, because sometimes in life, an issue, whatever it is, highlight something. As I said, I've been dealing with this kind of thing in my mind, this construct in my mind, for a very long time. I find it essentially offensive, to be quite frank with you, that a servant of me, okay, could, again, and take away, this is only highlighted by this most recent scenario, defame me, libel me, taint my reputation and integrity, and I not have recourse.
Well, how often has that happened?
No, I'm not saying it's happened.
That's what I'm saying. How often has it happened?
But it's happened.
Right, but it only needs to happen once.
It happened
Yes,
just
but
the
it
other
hasn't
day.
happened.
But isn't it? But
it
minister.
can happen.
But minister,
Well, yeah, but
you are an avid
and the speaker
soldier.
would be a guardian against that.
Right.
I would argue
Right.
that you have a speaker who would be a guardian against that. What I'm saying is these systems are not perfect.
No.
But the balance is in favor of the member of parliament representing his people without fear or favor.
But
That's the idea.
You are an avid, and you've always been an avid fighter of rights.
Right.
The fact that something has not happened, the fact that something has not occurred, is that, I don't know whose phone that is, but we get a little buzz, it distracts me. The fact that it has not occurred, the fact, though, that the possibility has been highlighted, doesn't that warrant, and isn't that validity to address it? Because
I don't think there's anything to address.
well.
What is there to
it's
address?
like saying it's. I'm just saying that when you're dealing with rights, if someone recognizes the people's rights, no, I didn't say it was infringed. I'm not making that leap.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying to you that's why these discussions, of course, get sidelined by the specificity of the issue, right?
Yeah.
I'm saying that the fact that that this is highlighted as a possibility, that there'd be people who would argue, for instance, as it was in the referendum, that women get their rights now; they don't have anything to worry about. The minister can grant citizenship. The minister can grant the conference of nationality. All of those things. But it is the idea that we are pursuing here, that I'm pursuing here. That's why I don't get into these.
I want to go back for a minute for one of the premises that you built your most recent argument on. This privilege point is, and that is that the framers of the Constitution deliberately made a decision,
enshrined it into the Constitution.
No, not about the privilege point, though, about women.
Okay.
I don't think it's fair to say that they deliberately did that, although it was deliberate, but not that they sat down and hatched a plot to do it. That doctrine of a woman taking her domicile from a man is a 19th century doctrine, which was in the law of the Bahamas at the time and in the law of the UK.
Right.
So there was
reflective
nothing,
of the times.
That's right. There was no revolutionary thing about it. For example, there was, I think it was just abolished in the year 2000. There was a Married Women's Property Act.
Right.
the Parliament had to pass an act in the 19th century to give women the right to own property when they were married.
Yeah, there's no doubt that people.
So all of that existed. So I'm saying it wasn't. They didn't have to sit.
It wasn't
and think
insidious.
about it. Right.
It
yes.
wasn't. I'm not saying it was insidious. Right.
So that's
I'm
the
saying
point
that
I
it's
wanted to
reflective of the thinking
and so
of the
Arthur
time.
Folks, who was there,
Right.
Sir Orville Turnquest, who was also there,
Right.
On reflection, thought that it ought to change.
Right.
The country didn't agree.
But we as human beings tend to, or at least have the potential to do so, to codify that which we hold beliefs on, right? And that while we're sitting and deliberating, interesting kind of connection there, that while we're deliberating, our mindset essentially drives us, and then we put it into scenarios that we unconsciously maybe end up in a scenario where we are. And so I think it is a rational thought process to say, if people who felt, in fact, that they were being oppressed by the crown in those days, that this may have been in their mindset when they put this into the Constitution. I don't know. I mean, this is an argument. This is an intellectual argument. But the issue is, again, if, regardless of whether or not it has happened, because it has happened, it hasn't happened a lot. If someone can go and call someone a murderer in the house, it's happened.
Yes, but I mean, even that was blocked by the Speaker in any event.
Yeah.
Even
he would
that.
have had to have withdrawn that, right?
Did he
Yes,
withdraw
right,
it?
yeah.
And we were made aware of a case, I think it was in the 70s or 80s, when Michael Lightbourne made some sort of case at Paul Adley.
But I was going to come to those. I come to those cases, right? The fact is that the privilege has been used as a means of people exposing public corruption, right? That's one of the instruments that it's been most useful to, or at least pointing in that direction. In places where you have no other recourse. People have no other recourse, so they go to their members of parliament and they say, I have discovered this, and I can't seem to get any public attention on this. That's what it's there for. So the member of parliament can do that. Now, as you say, there are rules about abuse, and you have a guardian of the rules in the Speaker. Now, the systems aren't perfect, but the fact is they're balancing factors in all things.
Well, let me ask you something. Let me take you on this line. I want to let Erica chime in here. So let's say I believe that someone is corrupt. I'm a member of parliament. I've gotten some information, and it's before me. Why do I not have, as a citizen, the capacity to carry that to the courts, and yet it goes to the House? It's stated on the House. What results? What results from that?
It's the idea of bringing public attention to it, and it may not even be specific allegations, because you may run up against the rules of the House in connection with it. But for example, a member of parliament can say, I went to the Commissioner of Police and I reported this matter, and the police have done nothing. And these names are involved. This, and this. So the executive has to respond to it. That's the idea behind it.
What is your take on the Speaker saying that if he had to do it again, he would reconsider whether or not again, without getting into specificity, I don't want to get into that. I really don't. We could have that. We could have another show on that, right? But the fact that he had some reservation, what does that say to you?
Well,
what do you speak to?
I don't want to pronounce on the Speaker's judgments. My last statement on the matter in the House was the Speaker is functus officio in the matter. So the decision has been made. It's with the Committee on Privileges, and we'll see where it goes.
And of course, it's going to, as I think you said in in your statement, it'll end up probably in the highest court in the land.
I think however it goes, is going to end up with the Privy Council. It's the policy court, and they decide what they want to decide. But the way the Constitution is framed, whatever the courts decide, the government could decide to pass a law to vacate the judgment tomorrow.
We'll see. And when we get back, Erica's got a couple of questions. We want to get back. I want to talk about, in the pursuit of democracy, shouldn't we be erring on that side as opposed to the side of the parliamentarian, while at the same time finding a balance of making sure that the parliamentarian has the capacity to do what he needs to do to represent his citizens?
If a conspiracy has been uncovered to overthrow the legitimate government of this country by foreign interest, then the balance is in favor of exposing what was exposed.
Well, we'll discuss that when we get back. We'll be right back. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Erica Wells Cox. We're talking with Minister Fred Mitchell about the system that we live in, which, many would say there are many facets of our system that should be brought into question. I'm trying here today, and I know a lot of people get into the salacious part of these things. I'm trying here today to deal with principles, not specificity of a specific issue, because I think that our democracy is, well, whatever we have, whatever that's called, and I know people would want to hold on to the premise that we have a democracy. Whatever we have, there's a lot of antiquated elements to it, and we can discuss that. But I know, Erica, you had a couple questions, and I'm going to go back to answering some questions on the side of the courts.
May I say, the democracy is quite vigorous. There's nothing wrong with it.
Well, our next segment, we're going to talk about
I don't think
that.
anybody concerns. I say anybody in this country says exactly what they want to say,
right,
anywhere, and they don't care. That's Parliament or not Parliament.
I'm going to make a distinction there between freedom of speech and democracy, but we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes.
Well, that's part of it.
Minister, before the break, you mentioned that no matter which way the appeal went in this parliamentary privilege challenge, that you thought it would go right to the top, right to the Privy Council. Now, if the Privy Council rules in favor of the other party, how will that affect parliamentary privilege? I mean, I know you had mentioned, well, the government could just come back and negate the law, or build a law to negate the ruling.
I can't predict what the government will do. I can't predict what the government will do.
You said they could do that.
Right.
No, I'm saying the law, the way the Constitution is framed, the Constitution says Parliament may, by law, say to the extent of the immunities that members of Parliament enjoy. So you could retrospectively pass an act, say all things are vacated.
So, but you see how people get this feeling. So the government couldn't pass a law to overthrow the inequality of women. This is my ignorance as a non-attorney person, but yet there's this little carved out piece, okay, because that's what I'm hearing, this little carved out piece that anything to do with us, we can overturn.
Well, but that's what you got.
Well, but it sucks. Because, okay?
Well, that's your opinion.
Well, it is my opinion.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's the opinion of a lot of people who don't happen to be in Parliament.
Only now. I mean, people forget this next week.
Well, we'll see. Well, maybe we won't let them forget it, Fred. Because
maybe, but I'm sure I can assure you, right? 10 years from now, nobody will remember this.
But
not at all.
But this is
not even for 1 second.
But this is what goes to the argument of the democracy, right?
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that there is no democracy,
Yeah.
but the fact that we, in our desire to strengthen the democracy, can't let these things just go away, because there could come a day when something, who knows what it is, but when something is done that this particular carve-out is detrimental to the democracy. So I think our job as journalists, as parliamentarians, as citizens, is to look to how we can strengthen the democracy.
The reporters don't even know who ministers of the government
Well,
are.
that's a whole other story. That's a whole other story. But
you're talking about an esoteric point like this.
I hope I'm a little bit more than not being concerned about esoteric. Or would be concerned about esoteric.
No, I'm saying I wasn't using it in a derogatory sense.
Yeah.
Maybe I should put it like this: what you are in the midst of is an intellectual discussion on a point of principle, right? Where the general reporting population is in this country that's not a concern of this.
But that's a concern.
I mean,
that in itself is a concern.
I remember this, right? That the Minister of National Security use the expression in camera to describe an event. And the newspaper reporter reported that the matter was supposed to be in the open. Didn't know what the expression in camera meant. So you see what I'm saying is that's where we are.
But these are all weaknesses.
As a generality. So next year, for a 19-year-old, this won't make one bit of difference.
Are you saying that we should be taking advantage of those weaknesses because they don't exist?
I'm not saying that. I'm just pointing out as a fact what exists.
Well, we will continue to work hard to try to make sure that those things don't continue to exist. But Erica, you had another point you wanted to make?
I was interested in getting on to this issue of free speech, especially as it relates to more recent events that have come up. But it made me think about, I know we're not going to get into specifics, but just the principle of the email, of the idea of, well, where did the email information come from? How is it possible to pull this information and
general,
to make it public in general.
Well, one of the possibilities is someone with authority gave it to the individuals. That's a possibility. Everybody keeps saying hacked and theft. How do you lead
well, in
to
the
that
absence of knowledge, that's what you saw.
Well, but the thing is, he who asserts must prove. They're the ones who said it was hacked. And have no evidence.
Well, but let me again. I'm not a lawyer. Eric is not a lawyer. Kendrick is not a lawyer. If someone owns an email, I own an email, and I did not give anyone authority.
Yes, you did.
No, I'm saying if I did not give someone authority
copy it to 9,000 people.
Well, even on those it says they don't have authority.
Maybe.
On most emails they have that disclaimer. They don't have authority.
Well,
the reality is that when I then accuse Erica of putting my email in the newspaper, she has to prove that she did not gain that unlawfully.
No.
That's my understanding.
No.
Okay, well then that's
so
she could just get it from anywhere and doesn't have to prove where she got it from.
No, she doesn't.
Well,
and then the thing is, we just responded yesterday to another case where cabinet paper is stolen from the cabinet,
right?
And the newspaper uses information from a stolen cabinet paper and then goes running off the deep end,
right?
No, testing of it, so on and so forth. They don't see anything wrong with using a stolen cabinet paper, but worrying about these emails.
But in my mind, and I'm just trying to show the line here, I would have a problem with that. I'm trying to be consistent.
Yeah.
It seems to me that I would be concerned about that.
But what I'm saying is, in our present dispensation and in the press, there is a test in public policy and public life, which is, where is the balance? Does it serve the greater good and the larger public interest for the information to be exposed? And so most public figures would say, if the answer is a greater benefit to the public interest, then let it be exposed.
And I would agree with that, except I would also be concerned about who's making that determination.
Well, the public interest is not something you can fix, and largely when people argue about it, it ends up in the courts.
Well, isn't that where we ended up in this instance?
Yeah, but there's a correcting mechanism for that.
So when we go back to this issue of the courts, I heard, and I was actually quite taken aback by this. I heard many folks say that the courts should mind their own business, or one branch of the government should mind its own business versus the other. And I thought, and again, maybe I'm just naive, that the whole premise of these different institutions was to create checks and balances on each other. That and I know they get semantic and say, well, it's only with regard to legislative issues versus, issues of privilege. But it seems to me that if we are to grow, if we are to mature, there will be tests. Is that not correct? And when something happens, it is incumbent upon those who are either aggrieved or those who feel that they have the right to pursue this, to test it, to say, is this the right position? Is this position in the greater good, so to speak? And that the courts would make that ruling. Why then would some people assert that that's not the court's domain?
But
that's their view.
But you know what I mean,
I'm putting the question to you.
No, but that's their view, and it's a view which is to be in some respects promoted. That you're straying into territory that you shouldn't. All of this is just a public argument which is playing out in the public domain, and let the public domain play it out.
That's why you're here. That's why you're here. We're having that discussion.
I don't understand what the big deal is. I say yes, you say no, and that's somebody will decide ultimately, and it will fade away. I really think I find this just a storm in a teacup. Really,
Well, is there concern about what the perception is, just from the average person who is only following it very generally, right? They see the headline in the newspaper, they hear the snippets on the 7 o'clock
they're not
news.
into the nuance.
They're not into the nuances, but there might be this perception of, well, parliamentarians think they're above the law then, and they shouldn't be trusted. No, I'm not saying that that's true. I'm saying that there could be a public perception out there. Is there concern about that public perception?
Well, as I say, the people who make that argument are politically driven. So I don't pay any attention to that.
But you think they know that. So you don't think that there's anyone...
that's nonsense.
Well, I'm going to say this to you. Right. I certainly have no political stake in this. Like I told you, I have been pursuing this thought process for close to 20 years. Right. okay, in both whomever was in power at the time, I find it an offense that I could be exposed as a citizen to this. And again, it might be minutiae in the case of what was happening with me, my particular case, but it could be greater. And so I was literally saying to myself, how come this has never been challenged? How come this premise has never been challenged? And to Erica's point, the almost every, I can say to me, it seems as if Parliament not only says it's above the law, but my good friend Mr. Mitchell here is saying to me, and if the courts rule against it, Parliament could vacate it.
I can only tell you what the law is. I'm only telling you what it is.
But this has existed.
This has existed since 1973, if not since 1963.
But let me ask you a question. Let's get into a more generalized point.
Right.
Every day in the history of common law,
right,
points have evolved.
Right.
That which was held can be changed, can be reinterpreted, if I may, to a different position. The fact that it existed from God knows when, when people thought the earth was flat.
Not God knows when, 1973.
No, I'm talking about the premise of privilege. I'm talking about the premise of privilege.
Yeah, but you see, you can. That's its historic origins, right?
Right.
The legal basis of parliamentary privilege is the 1973 Constitution.
Right,
that's the law.
But I'm saying that all laws are subject to challenge.
Well,
all laws,
fine.
Okay, and when it is challenged, and won, that position is won, then is it the position of Parliament to say, we will just simply vacate it? We will.
No, again, you see, you.
No, I'm not. Let me rephrase.
You asked me what could be done.
What could happen?
Yeah, and I'm saying it's
that?
possible. Sure, it's possible.
That's a scary thing for me. That
Why?
seems like that seems as if that plays right into the position of we're above the law. Because if the law is interpreted against us, we'll just pass another law to change it.
It can't be above the law because the law permits it.
But
it's not.
Well,
it's not above
I don't know how
the
to
law.
get to this one, but that piece of permission sucks.
Yeah.
Okay.
We need a lawyer in here.
No, I don't need a lawyer because it just
it's not lawyer talk.
It's not lawyer talk.
It's not lawyer talk.
See, this is how unlawyerly it gets.
Right.
That sucks. Okay.
Yeah.
The fact that
there's a public row about it. It's a nice row, I mean, I don't mind.
It's not a nice row. You've
of
had.
course it's a nice row.
I've watched.
I mean,
Mr. Fred Mitchell.
Here we are talking about something that I had to study in law school, 30 years ago, right? Having to write what parliamentary privilege is. And as a matter of fact, this bit of social history. I won, when I was in university in the UK, the prize for constitutional law, 1983, Christmas, 1984. The lady who tied with me for the prize, she's an Australian. I have not seen her from the day we left university in 1986. Showed up here 3 weeks ago. Showed a small town. She's here. Yeah, she's here because she had to renew a H-1B something visa for the U.S. So
sounds like
a
flu. Sounds like a flu to me. But go ahead.
So anyway, she comes, and of course, small town, shows up at the House of Assembly, and of course, I get all these calls. Did you know your colleague is your classmate from Australia, so on and so forth, right? But I simply say that story is that the constitutional law is something for me which is not pie in the sky. It's my life's work, so to speak.
But it's also not static.
No, and so, but what I'm saying is that I understand the dynamics of it, and I enjoy the dynamics of it. So fine.
So this is about.
Yeah, someone challenges it. Great. I mean, we'll find out.
But
find out
where. But at least we have Minister Fred Mitchell on record saying it's somewhat. See, and let me just say this about Fred Mitchell, okay? And I'm going to make a statement now, okay? I think sometimes people take you too seriously. And I'm saying that, in as a non-offensive way as possible, right? Because I think that this is a debate for you, okay? But that people think that you may not be open to debate. But the point I'm making is here, and that's why I wanted to do this in this forum, okay, is that we have to not be so focused on the way the message is delivered, how the message is delivered, but what is the premise of the message. And my thing is that, again, I'm going to say very clearly, this premise of privilege is antithetical to, in my view, democracy. That's my view. That's my position.
And I don't think you're right. I think this is just right now because of the particular circumstances surrounding it. People have a sensitivity about it. And, you know, part of it I understand is, you know, if I open my mouth, everybody hates me. So, you know, they just jump all over me.
Well, I'm in that club too, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. But so what I'm saying is that you know, I understand that. And you, in public life, you come to accept that no matter what you say, you know, some people are going to be against it. Let me put it this way. My view is on this. You were talking about newspaper headlines. If 10% of the population reads the newspapers a day, you're lucky. 10%. And
I think it's roughly that.
Yeah, I mean, and so the, you know, the people who are interested in this are we who are sitting around on this radio station, and people are probably being entertained by the fact that we seem to be having a row on the radio now. So
I don't think we're having a row. I think I mean, but
I'm
that's
using the word
yeah.
advisedly, right? I mean, it's a nice discussion, so people are enjoying it, right? But does it touch and concern anything fundamental in their lives? Answer for me, no.
Now let me ask you a more personal question. I don't see how much time we got here. Yeah. Do you think because we have till 7:00? Do you think, Fred Mitchell? And I don't know if anyone's ever put this question to you on the air, but I'm going to put it to you. That the way you answer the question sometimes, or your approach to because certainly I've done it in the past, how you respond creates more of a problem than there is a problem.
Doesn't create any problem.
Well, not for you, but I'm saying I'm talking about what people, the perception of the debate, the perception of Fred Mitchell, the perception of.
See, my political opponents want me to speak softly and be proper.
We're not talking about those speak
foolishness.
softly.
If you're going to talk nonsense to me, I can talk it right back to you. And that's my view.
No, but you and I are having a discussion, right?
Yeah.
Now, I will see a scenario in the newspaper where someone puts a position forward without. Let me be very frank. Hopefully we'll be talking tomorrow. Without any sort of abusive language. Your response is to come back with a very harsh tone.
Well, tell me who. Tell me who the person is.
Well, they're politicians, like they're diplomats, whatever the deal is, right?
There's only you might make that description with one person.
Well,
and I'll respond all the time to that person.
But no, I've seen it.
So
here's what I'm going to do.
You know, every
time I see it, I'll just drop you a line. I got your number. I'll drop you a line. Because I think that do you think you're thin-skinned?
No.
Well, actually, I don't think you're thin-skinned. That's the irony.
Not at all.
I don't think you're thin-skinned at all.
Man, but you know, I tell people, I tell my constituency branch this, right? You know, people call me this and that and all the rest of it. You know, that stuff, I'm concerned about that. From I was a little boy, I've grown up in this place, right? I know what the last refuge of scoundrels is when they can't win an argument. They call you all kinds of things. That makes
I state
difference
that all the time.
to me. I stick by my point. If you don't like it, too bad.
Yeah, but let me ask you a question.
That's me.
Let me ask you a specific question.
Right.
Now, this is specific. I got to drum one up.
Right.
I'm drumming one up in my mind.
Yes,
okay?
right.
We had a scenario where there was some issue in the with the Haitian people in Florida. Something to do with the detention. Something. I don't remember what it was. My response was that the chief diplomat of the Bahamas, right, said to them, well, they need to get a life. You recall that?
Yeah, they did need to get a life.
See, so it wasn't just that one.
And they got one, by the way.
But you see what I'm saying, Fred?
No
I'm saying now. Do you think it is that kind
Sometimes that kind of answer is responsible.
You're not going to do a Donald Trump and say you said some things you regret?
No, I'm not going to say that. No, sir.
All right, well, listen, we're going to be... listen, folks, I have him laughing up in here. I'm going to tell you that now. But anyway, we're going to be back in a couple of minutes, and we're going to talk more about what I think about the democracy issue, which I think is important. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here with Mr. Fred Mitchell, Minister Fred Mitchell, Minister of Immigration and... I was going to say National Insurance, Foreign Affairs. I want to, and let me tell you what's going to happen. I'll get a lot of texts and emails about my line of questioning. I'm not interested in, from either side, the line of questioning. I'm here. I brought Mr. Mitchell on to the show today to deal with the issue of privilege, and I want to argue that point, debate that point. Specifically, I don't care much about the ancillary issues, and that's the way it is. But adjunct to that, I want to talk about our democracy because this is a theme we've been playing about, And I don't feel we have a democracy. I think we have a partocracy. I think we have a situation where people at the party level control things, and that I think that the term used by someone the other day was people are parachuted into constituencies 3, 4, 5, 6 months before an election, not necessarily incumbents like yourself, and the people really did not choose their representatives. That the representatives were chosen at the party level. That is where I feel the democracy is missing. And I blame us. I don't blame the parties. That's how it's evolved. I blame us that we have not engaged ourselves in the process to demand representation by the people. Now, that's my view of why the democracy is is weak. What is your position? What is your view of that analysis?
I think the country is young, and that it's still growing, and the experiences are still coming. If you deal with the people who are at the very local level, like a constituency branch, the issues that we're talking about are not matters which concern them. The issues are real bread and butter issues. Right now, it's unemployment. And the fact that their children may not be able to find work. You can get people engaged on that. The rest of it, I think people are not concerned with. When a country develops, I believe people like Sam Huntington, who did Political Order in Changing Societies, which is a fascinating book about the development of societies. As a society gets wealthier, better educated, and older, more mature, then you develop a set of elites who concern themselves with issues of this kind. At the moment, the governing elite is very small. And so it tends to be like baseball teams, trading one to the next.
But you see, now,
just to finish the point. So I wouldn't beat ourselves up too much on this, but I would say there are some very great signs of a vibrant democracy. For example, if people feel themselves aggrieved, they leave the job and walk down to the cabinet office and they ask for redress. It's done all the time. The newspapers make a great deal of headlines and sell newspapers off that fact, and the government responds to it. Both governments, whether it was FNM or PLP. So there's a kind of walking man's democracy that exists here. Now, you may be concerned about the present institutional arrangements and how they work. For example, some of us in the PLP think that the question of putting in primaries. Some people have talked about primaries. Some people have said that we ought to do what they do in Jamaica, which is that the leadership of a party is determined not by the delegates to a convention, but by members nationwide. So all of those things are discussion points which are there. But I think for where we are, it's a pretty vigorous democracy.
Now, it's interesting because I think there are a lot of people who are frustrated. Now, it may be for different reasons and it may be for misguided reasons, but the interesting thing about that argument is that when you look at the United States, and I'm using that as an example, the reality is when they were in their infancy, they had more ground-up representation. It only devolved to this mutation of what we see now, and you see what we're having as a result. I actually see some, what do you call it, similarities in what's happening. But we skipped almost from, this point to this point, and that evolution of representative democracy, especially in a single-layered scenario, right? We have a central government. We don't have any kind of valid local government or constituency level government or regional government, and so
local government.
Well, yeah, we have Perrier and Aquapana. I mean, it's water. But the point I'm making, and I'm being, I'm saying I'm dismissing it, Fred. I'm being facetious.
I don't think you should, because I think of course it's a growing thing again.
But it's controlled by the central government.
Well, the funding is, but I mean, I take the one that I know best, which is the local government council in Exuma. I think they're quite vigorous, and they have a very defined vision of what they want in Exuma and where it should go, and they push the central government all the time. as to where it should go.
I'm sure, someone brought up
and the elections are hotly contested. Yeah, it's not over.
There are always outliers. I accept that, right? But I think that essentially people in constituency to constituency in this country feel that they don't have any say whatsoever in the person who's representing for those grassroots level concerns.
Have you ever tried to call a meeting? Try and call a meeting, for example, to ask a neighborhood what they feel about the traffic patterns that exist in their neighborhood. You call a meeting and see if you get two people.
No, I'm not even dealing with that. I'm saying.
So what I'm saying is that it is very difficult in this community to get people exercised about particular issues. And when you call meetings in this country, what happens is the usual suspects show up and hijack the meeting.
That's true. But I also believe it's because we have indoctrinated our people to believe that government exists in that walk-up. What did you refer to it as? A walk-up democracy form. But they don't need to be wasting their time here. They could just go talk to their prime minister. Everything goes to the prime minister or the
it's a small society, and one of the beauties of a small society is that you have access to the people who represent you. So what I'm saying is that one of the lessons, when I had some consultants who helped me out in this 97 campaign from the UK, and he was speaking to the supporters, my supporters in Foxhill. And he said to them, this is a Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock. He says, I want to tell you, you are extraordinary people. And they said, why? He says, who would be on a Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock? No election is close. The election is a year away. And we're sitting here talking about politics on a Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, that's because we don't have professional football.
So that's what I'm saying.
It's our sport.
Most people pay no attention to politics until the question is really upon them.
Right.
The rest of us are exercised over this. The 10% who read the newspapers, the 40 or 50 people who show up maybe to a branch meeting every month. But the rest of the population, my nephews and stuff, they look, where's the latest party at?
But this to me, unfortunately, this is the problem, that we are not engaged. But we run out of time.
They're young, and
are we any less engaged than the U.S., Do you think?
I think the participation is greater.
I think when you have an election, there's much more turnout, but they're not. I was moved by the fact that this 83-year-old woman was saying how she was moved by Barack Obama to join her school board. Yeah. There's so many layers where you can be involved. Okay, whether it's your school board or your town council, etc.
And may I say this final thing before you sign off? The issue we have is, how are we going to get male participation in the things that we do? My branch got an executive of 13 people, I think 13 or 14. One male, two males, females. There's nothing wrong with females, but you have to have participation from both genders.
Right.
And all around the institutions you look at, whether it's the school, the this, the that, the males are not.
Well, the fact that you have 13 is a representative of a greater problem in gender. Yeah. We're just not engaged. But I want to say this. I'm going to leave you with this. In our zeal, our zest, all the Z's, to continue to promote the democracy, this issue of parliamentary, and I'm glad you said it, because now you've challenged me. This issue of parliamentary privilege, I'm personally I'm going to be like, what's the guy, Glenn Beck? That kind of like, what's the word I want to use? Obsession.
But you're the truthful version of Glenn Beck.
I'm just talking about the premise of obsession. Okay, okay. I'm not talking about the mania that he has.
Show me your birth certificate.
But the reality is that I think it is incumbent upon us. And I got emails, people saying things like, "Oh wow, we would vacate." There are people who are concerned about this, and I think it is our job.
No, again, I want to make it clear that I'm not speaking for the government. I'm not saying the government.
It's a possibility
the law
out there.
allows
for it. And I'm glad you bring those things up, because people need to be, you see, there's one thing, in an adversarial democracy, right, that people need to be aware of the fact that these possibilities could happen. And the fact that it happens to be Fred Mitchell who alludes to the possibility, not the inevitability of it, should be driving us more to fight these scenarios so that they don't arise. So anyway, having said that, I'd like to thank you for coming on.
Yeah, pleasure. It's great. Had fun.
And we'll have you again in some other, maybe it'll be immigration or something, and we'll talk some more.
112 people just found in Barataria.
From the south.
Yeah.
It's, what I always say about it shows you how bad things are.
Yeah.
Because if you get in a boat, that's
140 from Cuba yesterday.
Yeah, it's rough. So, yeah. All right. Well, listen. Thank you for coming by, and thank you for having the conversation with us.
Pleasure.
Erica Wells Cox. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And Mr. Kendrick Williams, always a pleasure. We'll see you. Well, I'm going to be away on Thursday, but Rogan will be here, and she'll have a wonderful guest to interview. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, good night.